The first thing the seal noticed was the patch, half hidden beneath a frayed coat, stitched crookedly, faded by time and weather. It was Christmas Eve, snow falling in thin, quiet sheets, and the woman everyone else had dismissed as homeless was standing alone outside the bus terminal, clutching a paper cup like it was the last warm thing left in the world. Someone laughed as they passed her. Someone else muttered, "She shouldn't be here." But the seal froze in place, his breath catching in his chest, because he knew that patch. He hadn't seen one like it in over 15 years. And the last time he had, men had died, and lived, because of it. Chief Petty Officer Daniel Reyes hadn't planned on being back in his hometown for Christmas. The Navy rarely cared about holidays, and SEAL teams cared even less. But a shoulder injury had grounded him temporarily, and the doctors had insisted he take leave. So here he was, standing under flickering terminal lights, duffel bag at his feet, waiting for a delayed bus and wishing he were anywhere else. The town felt smaller than he remembered, colder somehow, and lonelier. He had just watched a group of college kids walk past the woman, laughing at the way she talked to herself, when his eyes caught that flash of red thread on her sleeve. It wasn't just any patch. It was an old morale patch, the kind units made quietly, unofficially, never meant for civilians. A small pine tree stitched over crossed rifles, with the words, "Christmas Eve, hold the line," beneath it. Reyes felt the memory hit him like a punch. Afghanistan. Mountain winds. Radio chatter cutting in and out. A night when everything had gone wrong, and someone fearless and stubborn, had kept them alive. He took a step closer before he even realized he was moving. "Where did you get that?" he asked, his voice rough. The woman looked up slowly, wary, her eyes sharp despite the exhaustion etched into her face. She was older than he'd first thought, maybe early 40s, her hair pulled back in a messy knot beneath a knit cap. Dirt clung to her boots, but they were military issue, worn down by years of use. She followed his gaze to the patch and laughed softly, bitterly. "Funny," she said, "no one ever asks that. Usually they just tell me to move." "I'm not joking," Reyes said. "That patch isn't something you buy." She studied him for a long moment, then shrugged. "Neither is trust." Reyes felt the eyes of the terminal on them, felt the weight of stares and judgment. He lowered his voice. "Christmas Eve, 15 years ago. Eastern Afghanistan. You were there." Her fingers tightened around the cup. For a heartbeat, Reyes thought she might run. Instead, she exhaled, long and slow, like someone letting go of a secret they'd carried too long. "They called me Ghost," she said quietly. "At least back then." The world seemed to tilt. Reyes swallowed hard. "No one ever knew your real name." She smiled, sad and distant. "Still don't." They stood in silence as the snow fell, the past rushing back to Reyes in sharp, painful clarity. That mission had been a disaster from the start. Bad intel, enemy positions closer than expected. A compromised exfil route. The SEAL team had been pinned down overnight, ammo running low, air support delayed by weather. And then there had been Ghost, an intelligence asset embedded deep behind enemy lines. No rank, no recognition, just a voice on the radio that night, calm and unbreakable, guiding them through hell. She stayed on comms for hours, Reyes said, almost to himself. Even when they found her position. "They always do," she replied. "You called in fire knowing you were inside the blast radius." She shrugged again. "You made it out." "Barely," Reyes said. "We thought you were dead." "I was," she said softly. "On paper." Reyes looked at her more closely now, seeing past the grime and the ragged clothes. The way she held herself. The scars on her hands. The alertness beneath the fatigue. "What happened to you?" he asked. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Same thing that happens to a lot of people who don't fit neatly into boxes. I was useful until I wasn't. Classified until forgotten. When the war moved on, so did everyone else. They moved away from the terminal, finding a bench under a broken street lamp." She told him pieces of her story in fragments, like she was still trained to compartmentalize pain. After that Christmas Eve mission, she'd been extracted weeks later, injured and quietly discharged. No ceremony, no benefits, her identity erased for security reasons that never seemed to expire. She tried to build a normal life, but nightmares followed her, and employers didn't know what to do with gaps in her history that couldn't be explained. "People think homelessness happens overnight," she said. "It doesn't. It's a slow erosion. One missed rent payment, one job you can't keep because you don't sleep, one hospital bill you can't pay because your name doesn't officially exist. Reyes clenched his fists. That shouldn't have happened. But it did, she said. And I learned to survive again. Different battlefield. A group of passers-by stared at them openly now, whispering. Someone called out, "Sir, she's bothering people." Reyes turned, his eyes hard. "She's not bothering anyone," he said. "She's a veteran." The word hung in the air. The woman flinched slightly, like it hurt to hear. Reyes stood and offered her his hand. "Come with me." "To where?" she asked. "Inside," he said, "out of the cold, and then we'll figure out the rest." She hesitated, pride warring with exhaustion. Finally, she took his hand. Inside a nearby diner, warm air and the smell of coffee wrapped around them. The waitress frowned when she saw the woman's coat, then noticed Reyes's posture, his bearing, the way he didn't let go of her hand. "They're together," Reyes said simply. They sat in a corner booth, steam rising from mugs as Reyes made a call he'd never thought he'd have to make. He spoke carefully, choosing words that would open doors without breaking rules. He mentioned the mission, the patch, Christmas Eve. Silence crackled on the line, then a sharp intake of breath. "She's alive?" the voice asked. "Yes," Reyes said, "and she needs help." Things moved quickly after that, the way they always could when the right people finally paid attention. Temporary housing, medical evaluations, paperwork long buried pulled from dusty files. For the first time in years, someone asked her what she wanted. She stared at the question like it was written in a foreign language. "I want to matter," she said finally. On Christmas morning, Reyes found her sitting by a small tree in the veterans' shelter, holding a new patch in her hands. This one was crisp, the stitching clean. It bore the same pine tree, the same words, but now, beneath them, a name. "They remembered," she whispered. Reyes shook his head. "They never forgot. They just didn't know where to look." She looked up at him, eyes shining with tears she didn't bother to hide. "You could have walked past me," she said. "Everyone else did." Reyes thought of all the times he'd relied on unseen people, on voices in the dark, on sacrifices he'd never fully understood. "Seals don't leave their own behind," he said, "even if it takes a while to realize who, our own, really are." Outside, snow continued to fall, soft and forgiving. Inside, a woman once called Ghost laughed with other veterans, her voice warming the room. And for the first time in many Christmas Eves, she wasn't invisible. She was seen, she was known, and she was finally home.